Welcome to the WIPS podcast, inspiring and empowering women to take the stage and up their game in the public speaking arena. My name is Chantal Bossé from Shabus, Leaders for Your Presentation, Public Speaking, and AV Needs. Enjoy the show. So, hello everyone. My guest today is Siobhán O'Leary. She was originally from many states in the United States, and now she's from Drogheda, and she'll correct me if I did pronounce it a little bit wacky, and it's in Ireland. Welcome, Siobhán. Thank you for
very much for having me. It's Drogheda.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and I managed to just,
It's okay.
We're learning new things, and that's what counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell me, what do you work, or what's your work or business?
Well, originally I was trained as a teacher, and that's still very much a part of who I am as a person, and I still would like to do that in some capacity, and that's what I'm looking into in terms of some sort of business. Okay. But at present, since I moved to Ireland 15 years ago, I've worked in various jobs. And the one I'm presently working in is I'm working my husband's business, doing print and design. And wow. I'm learning how to do the print trade. I was doing the bookkeeping, and I'm in the process of training somebody to do that so I can do the printing, which is more interesting to me. So I'm pursuing various things. I've met Chantal. I met Chantal through a course, business course.
We did.
And so that has got me thinking about various options and trying to narrow down my interests. But it will include teaching and hopefully some writing.
Okay, so you'll just get back to the first thing that you love doing.
Yes, exactly.
And it's another standard question. Do you feel you're shy or outspoken in your everyday world?
In my everyday world, when I was thinking about that, I grew up a very shy child, very shy, and people used to tease me about it. I was so shy, and I find when I was thinking about your question, I realized that even now, even though I feel very confident public speaking now, and I have no problem doing this podcast, for instance, didn't make me nervous. And I'm part of a gospel group, so I'm very well acquainted with standing up and speaking publicly or with a group of about 20 people.
Okay.
And so that's been no issue for me. But I did, as I said, I grew up very shy and had the benefit of being in a very small school. And so whenever we did, and they were very focused on the arts. So because of that, whenever we did a play, everybody, it wasn't you didn't have a choice whether you were part of it. You had to be part of it, and in order for the play to go forward. And so I hated it at the time, but I'm very glad for it now because it kind of got rid of that fear over time. And what else was I thinking about? Oh, so I do still get a bit shy when I walk into a completely different environment where there's a large group of people.
Yeah, new group.
And new faces. I'm not totally sure why I'm there.
Okay.
Like I may have been invited to the event, but I don't know the full purpose of it. Or so I would tend in that situation to find somebody that either looks familiar or is familiar to me, and I gravitate to that person and kind of hang out with them for a little while. And I find, which is interesting to me when I was contemplating your question, because my husband is not that way at all. He can go into any arena and start a conversation about anything. And it's amazing to me when I watch him, he always is able to, I don't know. It's amazing. It's just amazing to me. He'll find some connection and then they'll have this conversation.
Probably not as self-conscious as sometimes we are. And he just goes in there.
Yeah, but he hates public speaking.
Oh,
this is what's interesting. He absolutely, well, he'll do it, but he gets very, very nervous. He just doesn't do it unless he has to. And so that's what's really interesting is that I have no problem. I could be asked to public speak, but being in an environment like a group of people
feels less comfortable, maybe
I think
not
because
as
of the
controlled.
intimacy. I think because of the intimacy thing as well. It's like
True.
I'm on this is what I was thinking about, is that I'm on trial. That's what it feels like. Because you know what I mean? Because I'm like, they're going to ask me questions. What if I don't know the answer, or what I don't have an answer that they will think is intelligent enough, or I don't know, what all the kind of insecurities that go on in your head.
Okay.
When I'm public speaking, I'm speaking about something I know about.
True. That's true.
So I'm just saying, this is what I know to be true. It may not be your truth, but this is what I know to be true. And this is what I've experienced. This is what's true to me. This is, whatever I'm talking about. But I'm not on trial in the same way.
Exactly. I do understand. So, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's what I got thinking about when you asked that question. Hope it's not too deep.
No. And that's perfect, because it brings an interesting twist to it. And you already mentioned that you started to be put on stage in a play. So I guess it was probably your first time that you got to do public speaking.
Yeah.
Or do you have another time that you would like to share with us that you say, I did public speaking and I remember that time more than others?
Well, like I said, school was very small. So I would have, so it would have been starting in plays when I was about 7 or 8. And I would have been in high school. I would have been required to be part of the drama program because there was only 6 in my graduating class. And so we all, and the school had recently started doing a statewide drama competition. And so I was living in Alaska at the time. And so, again, didn't have a choice. But other than that, let me think. I can remember being asked to speak at, what would be a first time?
Well,
in my adult life, that would
in your adult life, if you have,
that's what I'm trying to think of.
One that you remember, and you can share how you felt about that. Sometimes we all have similar feelings about going through either grade school, high school. But if you have one in your adult life that you remember as being one of the first, and how was it at the time? Did you feel as bad or hated it as much as when you were in high school?
No, I didn't. But some of the initial shock of, I spoke on Sunday at our church meeting.
Okay.
For the first time in a while. It's only 20 people. But what I still find surprising is when I feel so passionate about something and the rest of the people in the room are not responding. Oh. They just don't feel as passionately as I do, perhaps. Yes. Or maybe they don't understand what I'm saying or whatever. That's fine. But so I can remember different times, like when you asked me that earlier, I can remember a time when I was in my 20s. My uncle was he was training to be a minister in a congregational church, and which is very official and very different than the faith walk I have. But at the time, he wanted me to come in and do a children's sermon. That they do that, I guess, in the congregational church, where they have a separate sermon for the children. Okay. Before they send them off to the creche. And so I said, oh, sure, no problem. And I found I was, even though I was a teacher and everything at that point, I found it very intimidating. And because of the silence. Okay. There was and I realized, again, just as you've asked me this question, I didn't realize, I've never thought about it really before, but it was the silence that was like deafening, as they say. And it happens. I'm talking to the children, and the children are always told, in chapels to be quiet, and they're not being their real selves, which I don't agree with. But anyway, that's another story. That's it. So they're sitting there and they're trying, hands in their laps and trying to be really good little children. And so I'm expressing to them, but they're not feeling at liberty themselves to really express response to me. And therefore, also all the adults are sitting there like they've tuned out, because they're like, this sermon is for the children, not for me. That's right. I'm assuming that's why they tuned out, but it was like complete, like pin drop silence the whole time I was talking. And wow. And I find that Yeah, the silence was deafening. It was that I would find that more intimidating than if there was rabble rousing, to be honest.
And I can relate to that.
Mm.
That little atmosphere that you feel is getting so.
It was too controlled.
It was controlled. Yeah, it was.
And so I guess that probably leads on to the next question, if you don't mind me introducing it, which is a bad experience.
That's right. I was going to say there because I figured, ooh, that was challenging.
That was challenging, but that wasn't the bad. That was it's related to my bad experience. Oh yeah, no, plenty. Because it's interesting. It's so interesting to me that it's just come out organically in our conversation. Because when I wrote down, when you gave me the questions, I wrote down answers. I just wrote that I've had early on traumatic experiences because I was around, this is how I wrote it, because I was around some adults who were more interested in performance than in encouraging the risk in children to speak publicly, even if their presentation wasn't pristine. Do you understand?
Is so very valuable.
Yeah. So they were really wanted the performance, and yet children are not. They're messy. Adults are too, but I mean, children, they don't have any, they're just like themselves, which is so beautiful about children, and what we need to
in a way
on more.
And we should still be doing it as adults, being ourselves. And it can be messy at times, but if we're being ourselves, that's when we bring value to other people. But I appreciate that. Go on. I'll let you go.
Okay, no problem. So I can remember one time wanting, and I was probably only, again, it was in a church setting, and I was probably only 8, I'd say. And in our church, people would go up and sing messages sometimes, not speak them. So I, in my innocence, went up and took my place in the queue and to go and sing my little message, which probably was very simple, like Jesus loves me and, God is wonderful. And that's probably all I was going to say, but because I was 8, and the pastor came over, and he certainly has some issues, but anyway, the pastor came over and said, you need to sit down. And I said, but I have something that I want to say. And he said, no, you need to sit down. Nobody wants to hear from you.
Oh,
yeah. Which was very crushing for me at the time. And there have been, I should counter, because I know some people can feel very negative about the church. Not all pastors are that way. And so please, this is not a full example of people in the church.
It just happens. So it's in a church environment, but you are right. In all walks of life, you will get those negative people just not acknowledging all the efforts that you have been putting in, just putting yourself in front of a room, in front of an audience. So it's not specific.
Commended the courage is what he should have done. He should have commended the courage.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do for one another. And this is what you're probably beautifully doing, Chantal, and doing this program, is to encourage people and to say, you have a voice. Get out there. You have a voice. And that's what that man was unable to do, because he was so focused on the presentation. He wanted certain people to speak, sing, and to do the thing because he wanted it to look a certain way. And whenever you box people into this,
that's right.
You're not actually seeing the true person anyway.
And it's probably something, is that something you would say you learned from that experience? Because sometimes when we realize, okay, if I'm trying to be another person, maybe that's when I won't be able to perform the way I thought I would be.
Yes, I would say that would be one thing that I learned, was to be courageous anyway, just despite what the gainsayers are saying, and to know the power of your personal voice is really important. The other thing I wrote in answer to that question would be to remember that probably most of the people you're speaking to are as scared as you are, if they were in your position.
Exactly.
And then when you do well, and you speak well, and you present your story or whatever you're doing up on the stage or wherever you are, then people are sitting there going, wow, I wish I was them.
You're exactly.
They don't want to be you when they're nervous, but then when they see how wonderfully you spoke and how much they touched your life, they go, oh, I wish I could have said that myself. And so
that's right.
You just go and do it, speak.
And that's a very important takeaway, because whatever we do and whatever the number of times we've done it, we will always have some challenges, bad experiences. And as you mentioned, it's what you do with it, and then just speak your voice. And that's a very powerful message. And now if we move away from that more negative twist to it, you probably have at least one great memory from taking the stage.
I do. I have plenty of good memories, but the one that came to mind,
that's right.
Plenty, way more than the negative. So, but the one that came to mind when I was asked the question originally was I was asked to go to a Nigerian gospel meeting. And I knew I had been chosen, not because they knew what I was going to say or even what I believed, but because I was white, which was really interesting to me.
It was really reversed.
Reverse racism.
Because you were different. Yes.
Yep, exactly. It was very interesting to me, but I decided to go anyway. It's no problem. And because they were, anyway, that's enough. So I really considered prayerfully what to speak on, and it's interesting. What came to mind to speak on was something I knew would be controversial for them, but I decided to speak on it anyway, which is about tithing. Some of the more, most of the African churches that I know, at least here, are very much into tithing, giving to the church.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, tithing literally means 10%. And it's based on an Old Testament truth that does not actually apply, to me, does not apply to the New Testament church. But I didn't actually know that until I did the study myself and looked into what I would say about it.
You did your research.
I did my research. I did my research for what I was going to speak on. Exactly. And so so really what I shared was just that, that when God looks at people who follow him, which he loves and cares for all of humanity, he's looking for 100% of people.
Yes.
He's not looking for 10% of you. And if you can imagine, if you can relate this to your own family, you don't love your child 10% of the time.
Oh, you're right.
You love them 100% of the time.
That's
and you
right.
give, and I'm not a parent myself, but I have nieces and nephews, and I know that I would give them 100% of whatever they needed. I wouldn't say,
exactly.
They wouldn't ask for a biscuit and I give them only 10% of a biscuit. I would give them the whole biscuit. You know what I mean? So,
That's right. You're not having only 10% of your meal tonight. You're having the whole plate.
You're having the whole meal. You're having the whole meal. Everything on the plate is yours. And so the same in our response to God, he's given us everything that we need, everything. So we respond back to him with 100% of who we are. So I shared on this, and it was interesting that afterwards, the pastor came up to me, and he didn't get the point at all. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, maybe I didn't actually get the point across clearly. That's okay. I can learn from that. But then quietly and secretly, one woman came to me and whispered to me, "Thank you so much for your message. That really touched my heart." And
wow.
So the story, the motto or the moral of the story of what I've just shared is, your message is for the one person. Don't worry that if the 100 people don't get it. Your message is for the one person it touches, and that is a valid reason to speak.
It is.
If you only speak to one, if you only get the message to one. And that's what I took away from that.
Maybe she was the only one that really went up to you, but you don't even know how many more silently agreed with your message.
Absolutely.
And were probably very happy that you shared it with them. That's a great story. I really like that, because you're speaking for the value you have to offer to people. That's great. And okay, we're women, and we all know that sometimes we get stuck into that. Do you have one wardrobe tip that would help people take the stage in a more confident way, or something that happened to you want to share and say, well, maybe maybe you should avoid that.
Okay, well, I put it in one snippet and then I'll expand it a little bit. Your message is the main thing.
Yes.
So you don't do anything that would distract the audience from your face or your message.
Absolutely.
Or your voice. So basically, expanding on that, wear what makes you feel beautiful, what is a color that suits you, a style that suits you, not something somebody else says, this is power dressing or none of that, just what suits you personally. And I wrote something a bit silly, but I was thinking, unless you're doing a conference on flower power and hippie fashion, keep it simple.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and don't nothing that will make noise. No jewelry that makes noise and will be distracting. No clothes that pinch and itch that will distract you and make you want to run off the stage and fix it.
That's right.
None of that. Just something beautiful and simple, and that doesn't distract the audience from the beauty of who you are. And what you have to say.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. That's perfect, because then you get to focus on the important thing, you and your message.
Yeah.
Great. And what's one tip that you would share so women can take the stage in a more confident way?
I'm going to read what I wrote. I think that
that's okay.
Okay, that's good. I said, the tip I want to leave with all of you wonderful women out there is you are uniquely you, so celebrate it. There's not one other person on the planet like you. There never was. There never will be. That's a pretty cool idea. Let your voice be heard. That goes for men too, goes for all of us. But let your voice be heard. Let your true self out. And I have a favorite quotation that my brother Stephen introduced to me, and I've often had to remind him of, which is, it's by Oscar Wilde, and he said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." We have one life to live. So what did I say here? Oh, we have one life to live. There's only one you. So let your light out from under the bushel. And what the heck was it doing under there in the first place? You were not meant to live a life of fear. None of us were. Life experience can teach us there's lots to fear, but all of it is lies. Unless it's a spider, of course. Then you can fear those. No, I'm joking. We are all called to be free, unshackled. And if you make a mistake, get up, move on. Journey on, discovering your voice, and let it be heard. And don't forget to leave room for other people's voices, especially those different from yours, to be heard. Everyone's voice is valid.
What a beautiful way to end this chat. I call it a chat because I want it to be friendly. That is beautiful, Siobhán, because it gives enough information so people can realize, you know what, it can be a rocky road taking the stage. But in the end, and especially with that Oscar Wilde quote, geez, that was spot on.
Yeah.
So I do thank you very much for your time and your willingness to share all these valuable information with us.
Absolutely. I'm very happy to help. And I really hope that the women out there listen and are empowered by it.
I'm sure they will. So thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome, Chantal. The Lord bless you. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed the show. Please tell us what you think by commenting, and even share with your own networks to inspire and empower others to do public speaking.